I hope that with the announcement of quote unquote major improvements to Windows, yes, we're going there, Alex, we might see some actual improvements rather than regression, but I remain largely skeptical based on Microsoft's previous claims and their almost complete apathy to DirectX over the last 5 years. What I would really like to see is the ability to install Windows without any of the OneDrive or Copilot crud. I know I can disable / remove it, which I do, but it does seem to reinstall itself every few updates. Would it also benefit most users to have a level of back compatibility in Windows removed or at least limited to allow for a more streamlined modern underpinning to the OS, with some of that moved to an emulator or a VM? So specifically, Mac is talking here about a range of improvements that have been mooted by Microsoft for Windows. It's in a blog post talking about stuff like power and scheduling improvements, graphics stack optimizations, background workload management, and perhaps most promisingly of all of that stuff, advanced shader delivery for more hardware, not just the Xbox Ally handhelds. So, yeah, Alex, what do you think about this? I mean, I don't really think that, yes, you can uninstall stuff like OneDrive and Copilot, etc., but I don't think it actually has any impact on system performance as such. But it does present, I mean, if Microsoft came out tomorrow and said, actually, we've got a stripped-backed Windows 11 for you, which is solely for gaming, I think that would probably be quite welcome by a lot of people.
Yeah, me included. So I want to take this step by step because this is a very long question. The major improvements to Windows, I, like you, have felt the Microsoft apathy. I also would like the install process to be much more, you go to Windows 98 and you look at the install process and there's you can click to add the multimedia stuff. You can click to add the extra stuff. You can get rid of online features with all these little click boxes. It can be actually customized to your liking. In Windows 11, you have to basically log on with a Microsoft account unless you do a command line interrupt and restart the computer during the logging process to fake that you don't have an internet connection. And then it'll allow you to actually install the classic Windows way where you have just an offline user that is not tied to some MS account, which is the way I prefer to use Windows because I actually don't like logging on my PC. And if someone wants to break into my house and log on my PC, you know what? Power to them. Those are things that I agree with you about, very much so. I don't think, like Rich said, I'm not sure a lot of them actually have a huge system draining resource for the everyday. I would love to see some benchmarks of them, but I think a lot of them aren't even active all the time. And I don't think they're going to become active when you're in the middle of a game unless you have a scheduled OneCloud upload during a certain time or something like that. I don't think Copilot should be running while you're running a game, but who knows if they will add in some sort of gaming Copilot thing that
there is a gaming Copilot
that runs over your game and just really annoys you. I haven't turned that on yet. It has yet to get in any game that I've seen. If it does, then I'm going to probably complain about it. But at the moment, I don't know. I would need to see the benchmarks to allow that to thing. Once again, the backwards compatibility stuff in Windows, I don't think it is a huge drain on CPU resources or something like that. I think it is a drain, though, on some strange functionality that you come across, like when you go into the control panel and you see doubled up options in multiple places in Windows, or when you see an option that is only available in one area, even though you imagine in your head it should be available in another area of Windows. And I also think it slightly comes about occasionally if you right click in a game, and it's usually an older game, and you have to look at borderless windowed compatibility. There's full screen optimizations option, as well as, forcing compatibility for weird hookups that existed in the Windows Vista to Windows XP era. That's why you can force things to be compatible with Windows XP Service Pack 3. Those are things where I think it affects older games, but I don't think it is a big issue with, current games are written for like the latest version of DirectX, and they're not bothering themselves with those things anyway. It's mainly an older game thing. So I don't think getting rid of backwards compatibility is the way to make Windows leaner. I think Windows needs to be leaner by allowing users to dedicate more resources and more of the core and more of everything to just the gaming experience if they so choose it, and not have the OS be designed around other aspects of questionable productivity, even if they don't want it. That's the thing. It's like forcing you into a certain lane and not allowing you to have the Windows be the way it, you'd want it to be. So that's my big deal. This blog post that they're referencing, there has been a presentation by Intel saying that they want to use the new shader standard and to essentially through their driver update allow you to download those SODB blobs, I think they're called, and kind of have your games have precompiled Intel shaders on your Intel device if you so would like it. And I think they do mention here, and working with other partners, I think they're referencing both AMD, specifically Intel, and we have yet to see anything from NVIDIA on this in a present capacity. So I think that's what it is. I hope they do that well. I still have my big question marks whether or not they'll do it correctly and we see a larger change in the industry. There's a couple other things that I would love to see them change, in there too. I would like to see maybe more transparent direct storage usage, allow the user to change whether or not a game explicitly uses CPU or GPU decompression, because devs have made the wrong choice quite often to the detriment of certain hardware. There's a lot of things that I think that they could do within Windows. And most recently, the DirectSR push has been an absolute no-go. No one cares about it. And developers are having to roll their own integrations of XeSS, DLSS, and FSR. And really, at this point in time, there should have been and should be a forward-looking interface for developers to use where the driver just says, oh, we're going to use FSR or we're going to use DLSS or we're going to use XeSS because you're using an Intel chip. And I feel like at some point in time that should become a driver thing, just kind of like anisotropic filtering became a driver thing. So those are things that I think Microsoft should have been on years ago, and I'm not sure how they actually get it up to a standard where this actually becomes something that helps users in modern games, because it's going to take like 5 years for it to actually become implemented at this point. So a lot of stuff there, a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but I just want to say, I agree fully with you. I wish there could be a more streamlined version of Windows that is more focused towards gaming.
I agree, but I think the other thing is just like, I think there's two things. I'd call it quality of life and quality of performance. I'm still thinking about my ROG Ally, which mysteriously lost a whole bunch of GPU performance the other month. What happened there? I don't know. There's got to be some sort of internal way for if Windows is kind of doing all of this weird stuff, there's got to be some kind of self-check mechanism to make sure the system is running as it should be running. Right? That you don't have this problem on a console. But something happening with Windows can cause problems like that. And more to the point, the Xbox interface, the full screen experience, as it's called, it's got a lot of work to do on that. I think it's still not a particularly compelling interface based on what I've seen thus far. I mean, it's a step in the right direction for sure, but it's not great. Secondly, stuff like the onboarding experience shouldn't be just plain Windows if you're looking to produce a gaming-centric operating system. Windows Update and driver updates need to be combined into one thing that happens. Firmware, similarly, the same with firmware updates and BIOS updates, that sort of thing. All of this needs to be sort of homogenized into a single thing that happens at boot, just as it does on an Xbox console, and crucially, as what happens on a Steam Deck and presumably a Steam machine. So those are the things that I kind of would like to see. And, to be fair, advanced shader delivery actually looks, potentially very, very strong. We still need to test that on the Ally. It's bit difficult to put it through its paces with handheld architectures where there's so many different bottlenecks. But yes, I mean, it's certainly a step in the right direction. Oliver.
Yeah, I think one big problem, I mean, obviously you guys are the Windows experts here. I'm not going to go through all the changes you guys described in all that detail that you'd like to see. But I think one problem here with just this general premise is that like all these services they're describing, OneDrive, Copilot, you also have like, your automatic Teams install, your Game Pass, your Windows 365. These are all how Microsoft makes money. Microsoft makes money off selling the license to OEMs. But they're also making money on the services. They're making a ton of money in the services. So without the services involved, that's not a great deal for them. Now, the kind of compromise way you can maybe excise some of these services and not have some of the automatic updates pushed on you is to get a long-term service or long-term support version of Windows. I know Microsoft offers LTSC versions of Windows. They call it, that's their dubbing of the long-term service option. And those, I think, are updated very sporadically and only with like very stable OSs. That would be my suggestion. I don't know that you can get that easily outside of like large organizations, but that's one potential way to get around this. The other thing is like for Copilot, I do wonder how many resources Copilot is using on the person's computer potentially, because Copilot, for the most part, it's not local. It's based on the GPT series of LLMs published by OpenAI. And they were mostly run in the cloud, like your GPT 5.1 or 5.2, which was just released. Those are running in the cloud, and effectively the output is being streamed to your device. So there are some functions that Copilot will do locally, like live captions on a so-called Copilot Plus branded PC, or Windows Recall would potentially be something that you might be concerned about if you have Windows Recall turned on. But as far as I can see, all of the functions that are under the Copilot Plus program and currently run on an NPU are functions that seem to be fairly discrete, that you would toggle on, and not things you'd have likely to run in the background, unless you're talking about Windows Recall, which I don't think most people have enabled anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.